Okay, right, lovely. Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me again this evening. And I've got Lisa and Damon here as well from the Stronger Practice Hub. For anyone who hasn't been to any of these sessions before, my name's Kim Barnettson. I'm a childminder, but I'm also the childminding partner for the Stronger Practice Hub. Let me just share my PowerPoint, and then we'll be able to start. Sorry, these things always take a little bit longer than you think they're going to, don't they? So this session tonight is about using paint in the childminding setting. Hopefully that's going to start working. Oh yeah, here we go, lovely. So yes, using paint in the childminding setting. And it's actually a community of practice webinar. So that means it's not just me telling you lots of things that I've thought of. It's actually a more of an interactive session where we encourage you to sort of chip in with your own ideas. You can either do that on the chat group, the chat box, or you can pop your hand up, or you can just interrupt. Please just unmute yourself and interrupt. I'm very happy for you to do that. Partway through the session, we've got another one of these little Slido things where you'll need your phone just to zap the code, and then you can join in. But I'm hoping what we'll be able to do is sort of solve some of the barriers or overcome some of the barriers by sharing ideas about how we present painting and how we can facilitate it in our settings. Because we're all fantastic practitioners, and it's really good to share this practice, isn't it? So let's get started. Here we are. So I should let you know where we get our evidence from. Again, it's not just me making it up, telling you interesting things. All of our evidence, anything we talk about, comes from the Early Years Evidence Store, which is part of the Education Endowment Foundation. So it's all research-based evidence proven to support children's outcomes in a positive way. So we really want to be working in that direction where we know that something we're doing is having a positive impact on children's later outcomes. For this session, I've also used the Help for Early Years providers website. If any of you have used the Padlet, you'll be familiar with that. It's got lots of little interesting sort of ways of supporting children for different areas of learning. Definitely have a look if you get a moment. You can dip in and out of it. It's not anything too massive. And then the early years, the YFS, the new one for childminders that came out in January. So why is paint important to early years development? Let's have a think about it. We know already, I think all of us, don't we, that in order for children to develop fine motor skills, they need to also so that means they need their core muscles, they need their shoulders, their arms, they need to be doing big things with big muscles basically. But paint can also do that as well. So in this picture, for example, you can see the children painting with coloured water on the patio. They're using rollers, and there were some big brushes, range of different things they could use. And then at the opposite end of that development spectrum, you can see the children painting very delicately on doilies. And before they can do that, they need to have done the big gross motor skill development. Also, interestingly about painting, I suppose we could assume, couldn't we, that painting does support hand-eye coordination, which is really vital for writing. It's an early form of mark making, isn't it? But it's also vital for reading, because when you're using hand and eye coordination, you're supporting the development of cognitive development in the brain and the eyes to be able to track. And of course, when you're reading, that's what you need to do. You need to be able to track. So again, painting is really important for that type of development. And this is proven evidence. It sounds like I'm making these things up, but I'm really not. Children who have opportunities to express themselves creatively are better communicators. You could look at any type of art or creativity as a form of self-expression or communication. And so that supports children's communications, but just communication, but just in a different way to verbal communication. I think it's important to think of different ways that children communicate. They tend to be more resilient. They try ideas, doesn't work out, they try something else. They have more confidence in their own ideas. So whatever it is they're going to do, they're happy to give it a go. And also they tend to be more critical thinkers. That's because they've had the chance to explore this creative side of their development. So we really want to enable all of this in our children, don't we? Here we can see another thing that's proven to have positive outcomes for children is what we call process over product. So research suggests that learning outcomes are highest when there is no expected outcome. So in the past, anyone who's been childminding for a while will be familiar with the old handprint crafts that we were all doing a few years ago. But actually, when you think about it, what was the learning value in that craft? Most of that would have been made by an adult, wouldn't it? So research shows that when there is no expected outcome, that's when you get the highest learning outcomes. Also, when children are able to choose their own materials and choose how to use them. So these children are painting on a mirror. That might not have been something that was set up for them to do. They might have just chosen to paint on that mirror. And also, going along in the same lines, there's no right or wrong way. They can paint however they want to. It's the old thing, I think, a long time ago. You remember when children were colouring, staying within the lines. That's really, really not what we're looking for in the early years. We want them to be expressing themselves. The outcome, the product at the end of it is not the most important part for us anyway. It might be for the child. The process is the thing that we want to be supporting. Again, I'm probably a bit older than most of you, but when I was at school, painting was painting on a flat piece of paper, either on a table or on an easel. But actually, there are so many other different ways we can offer painting that offer a really interesting experience for children and support different types of development. So I've just got a few examples here. This is squeezing paint down a tube, down a pipe. It's a great idea, isn't it? Because the colours mix as they're coming down. The child is using their muscles to squeeze the paint. That's quite a tricky thing to do, actually. Taking your paints out into the wild, painting on 3D objects like a tree trunk or a big stone, or even painting in puddles or anything like that at all is just fab and a really different way of exploring this creative side of children. Painting other resources in your setting. This is a picture from my setting, and we quite often paint other resources. Small world toys especially, it's just really something the children love doing. And it's got a bit of it's a double whammy really, because it's fun to paint, but it's also fun to clean. So, there's nothing you can't really paint, is there? If you've got something you're very precious about, obviously you might want to move that to one side, but painting the baby dolls is a really interesting thing for children to do, or painting the cars, or painting the animals, or anything like that you've got. It's because they're textured, they're 3D, just a different experience. This again is at my setting, and this is children painting paper lanterns. Now this is really tricky. When we're talking about hand-eye coordination, this ticks all the boxes. These are spheres, obviously, spherical objects, but they're also moving all the time. It's really quite tricky, even as an adult, to paint on these. The children really love it. It costs pennies to put together as an activity, for a painting activity, and they just absolutely love painting on those lanterns. And then a similar sort of idea is painting here on a net curtain. You could paint on anything really, a sheet, something that's moving, something that's soft. Try and think of just different ways of offering this painting experience for children. Now, here we go with our Slido. As you can see, I wasn't doing an awful lot of talking today. It's just me giving a bit of a summary, and now we're going to do the interactive part where we can all work together. So if you could get your phone out, please, or you can just join using the code down at the bottom there. Pop in a few words about what are the barriers to you offering painting in your setting. Now, when I say painting, I mean different or more adventurous or large scale painting like we've been seeing in these pictures. The sort of painting that's really valuable for children's development. Pop some things on there. Yes, resources and space, lovely. The weather, right? Let's see if we get any more come up. I'll wait for you all to put some things in there, and then we can together, hopefully, we can sort of answer or come up with some solutions. You'll see in a minute on the next slide, I had a guess at what the barriers might be, and I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I think I have guessed correctly. Right. I like the clearing up bit. No adult wants to clear up that sort of paint, but there you go. That's part of the job, isn't it, sometimes? Okay, so let's get started on this. If anyone wants to put anything in the chat as an answer or an idea, then please do. Or just unmute yourself and just chip in and give me some ideas. So let's have a first think of the first one. Babies putting paint in their mouths. How could we overcome that barrier? Any ideas? I'm going to have a look in the chat. Or Damon's going to tell me if there's anything in the chat. Just from while we're waiting, just from my own experience, you can make paint. Really, really easy to make. I'll say edible paint. It doesn't taste particularly nice, but you can make paint from a little bit of food colouring and corn flour and water, and you cook it, and it's a bit like painting with custard. It's lovely, really lovely, especially if you've got a child that's got that sort of sensory need or a schema that's an enveloping schema where they want to cover themselves in it. Oh, it's lovely stuff. Doesn't cost very much, and it comes out as a lovely pastely shades, lovely. And when it's first made, it's warm. It's even nicer. It's like painting yourself in warm custard. Really lovely. So you could use
Lorna
that.
and Lorna and Tina agreed with you on the edible paint, and
Yeah.
Helen's put use yogurt paint.
Well, good idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Actually, I did do a quick bit of research into whether paint in the UK is children's paint is toxic. Because I was at a group actually the other day, and a parent wouldn't let their child paint because they had put some in their mouth and they were worried about it. But actually, all children's paint in the UK is non-toxic. You wouldn't want a child to eat gallons of it, but you know, popping their fingers in their mouth when they've got a little bit on their fingers is really not anything to worry about at all. Yeah, I'm interested in the yogurt paint. Who had said that? Let's have a look.
Yogurt paint, that was Helen.
Oh, Helen, are
Helen,
you
Helen,
okay to chat, Helen? Can you just tell us what you mean by yogurt paint? Is it just yogurt or is it something else? Natural yogurt and food coloring, lovely.
it's just natural yogurt, and then you add food colour into it.
Yeah, I mean that sounds
It's,
lovely, doesn't it? I think that's a
yeah.
really sounds like a good idea, a good way to overcome that problem. But honestly, I really wouldn't worry too much about children putting paint in their mouths. They'd have to be drinking gallons of it for it to have an effect. Okay, interfering and stopping creativity by putting on an apron. We all have a differing views on this, I think. Who feels that children should wear an apron, or what are the barriers to that? If you're stopping creativity by saying, hold on, before you paint, you've got to put on an apron, what could you have done previously, maybe to prepare for that?
I do a lot of painting outside in the garden, And
Mm.
before they even go out, they kind of put their, if it's the wind this time of year, they put their wellies and waterproofs on. So all their clothing is covered.
Good idea, Lorna. Yeah, I think perfect actually.
Just set them up and then they can as much mess as they want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also they're not going to get cold because when you're painting, you might get wet as well, mightn't you? So, I think that's perfect. Um,
Yeah.
I think we all do have different, as I say, different views on this. Personally, I don't use aprons because of this, as someone said, interfering and stopping creativity. But all my families know right from the start that that's the way I work, and they must only send their children in clothes that they don't mind getting painty. And I have lots of old spare bits and bobs here as well. But that's just the way I work, and I know that might not be the same for everyone. So, but I think you're right, Lorna. Putting waterproofs on, especially at this time of year, is perfect. Cleaning up the mess without an assistant, or the mess without an assistant to help. So I should think, I don't know who posted this, but quite a lot of us work alone. Yes, it is messy, but again, we have to sort of think, don't we? No, as I say, no adult really wants to clear up mess if they can possibly help it, but it is part of our job, isn't it? Can anyone think of any solutions to that to
Yeah,
overcome that?
regarding the mess, what I have at home are like big, I don't know what to describe them, like bucket tubs. So
Yeah,
what I do, I just chuck everything paint in the bucket tubs. And then when the children go home, I just get the hose out and wash everything in the bucket tub. And it just saves me having to clear it up in the moment.
yeah, what a great idea. Just put it to one side somewhere else, and then deal with it later on. Or one thing I find works quite well, especially in the summer when you might maybe outside all day, is just get the children to help clear up, because that's part of the fun, isn't it? Is the washing it away and seeing the colours of the swishing around in the water, and or giving them the hose if you feel brave enough. But yeah, I agree, Charlotte. Thank you for that. Um,
A couple of
okay,
people
But
have
this,
also said, sorry, Kim, a
go
couple of
on.
people said get the children to help clear up.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
at this time of year, again, if you're, I don't do so much. I try to be outside to do big painting.
mm,
Um, when they're finished, if we haven't got time to clean it up right then because children need sleep or lunch, I just shut the door on it
yeah.
and do it when they've gone home,
Yeah.
or they can go back to it later.
I think that's a really good point, actually, Lorna. So hang on with that thought, because at the end of this, we've got another question about
Okay.
um, when do we when do we sort of think creativity is finished and it's time to get rid of it, and when do we sort of allow the process to continue? So that's a really good point, Lorna. Sorry, I don't want you to hold on to that, because I think you'll have the answer to that.
Okay.
Okay, someone's put allergies. What did someone mean by that? Allergies to the paint, I guess. Um, I guess because I'm assuming because paint is, as we say, non-toxic, you'd have to be specifically allergic to one of the ingredients in the paint. Um, you can get natural paints that are meant to be allergy free. You can, as we were saying earlier, you can make things, can't you? You can make your own paint. Um, I guess it depends what you mean by allergies. Do you mean a skin reaction to the paint? In which case, maybe you could cover the child up a little bit more, or you could use paints that you've made yourselves. Parents wanting an end product. Okay, I think here you need to educate the parents possibly, but what does everyone else think? Does anyone else think, how do you explain that to parents when they say, well, where's the picture?
I mean, in my setting, I don't tend to send their artwork home.
Mm.
What I typically do is we hang it up in the playroom, so the children have it on display in the playroom, their artwork. And there was two reasons I chose this. A lot of parents did end up throwing them in the bin because we do quite a lot of art and craft. And I thought by having it in the playroom, they've taken kind of ownership of their play space, and then the parents can see their. I send photographs of their artwork. Sorry. But if it's something I've made for home, then we send the end product home.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, yeah, that's a really good idea. And I think we just need to think about, is our job to support the parents? Well, in some cases it is, but is our job to work for the parents, or is our job to support the children's development? And actually our job is to support the children's development. And so maybe you can find some evidence to say, like we've done tonight, that it shows, go on to the early years evidence store, and it shows that not having an end product or the process is the important part of all of this. So you're right, photos of the process can be the end product. That's a brilliant solution, I think. Different age children, how are we getting around that problem? So I guess we're thinking of, let's think, a crawling baby and a couple of preschoolers. It depends what you're painting, really, doesn't it? I think. How would we differentiate that type of activity for different age children? Anyone got any?
I would just cover them all up, as I say, in waterproofs or something. And if the little one wants to crawl through it and do hand and footprints or something, they can all just explore themselves how they want to experience it.
Mm. I agree, Lorna. I think that is the answer, actually, because we want all these children to experience their creative side and to develop their creative side. But they're all going to do it differently. Even if they're all the same age, they'd do it differently, wouldn't they? They wouldn't all do exactly the same thing. So yeah, I mean, I know I work with 3 or 4 children each day, and I know that it can be hard work when you've got older children painting something and the little one crawls right through the middle of it. But that's all part of the learning process, isn't it? And learning to be empathetic with other children, and that babies don't understand that that's your special picture or whatever it is. And having that sort of ability to just all of them to join in and do things in their own way. Someone said the weather, and I'm really sorry, but there's a thing here that says clearing up when I have, and I can't see the last word because it's behind my box here. I'm not sure if I can get rid of that. Could someone tell me what that says? Clearing up when I have something. But in the meantime,
It says
One
of a few little ones. When there's little ones as well.
oh, okay. Well, I think we might have covered that already with those suggestions, mightn't we, from Charlotte and Lorna, that we just pop it to one side, clean it up later on, or as we'll see later in the session, leave it out for tomorrow, if you have space. So the next one is space. I have a small setting inside. I don't know who typed this, but that could have been me, because I have a very small setting inside too. And I tend to, as Lorna said, I tend to do any big painting things outside, and anything that's like a smaller invitation, like a watercolor and flowers or something like that, that can be inside. But I just don't have enough floor space otherwise for anything like that. Although sometimes, occasionally, I might do things like string up piece of net curtain across the conservatory, and we paint on there, and I just shove all the furniture to the side. It really depends on what's in your own setting and what you have around there and the space you actually have. Another thing I would suggest is, don't forget, you don't have to do this in your setting. You can go out. You can take your paint out and do it in the woods, or you can do it at the beach or at the park or at another childminders. If you know a childminder that's got a bigger space than you, and actually that overcomes quite a few of these problems, doesn't it? Get together with someone else and say, shall we have a painting session? And then there's one of you can be sort of supervising the children while the other one's going to help something or clear something up or get some more paint or whatever it is. That's always a helpful thing to do. But does anyone else have any more suggestions for that small setting inside? Wait to see if I've got any. While you're thinking on that, I'm going to move on to the mess. I think we might have covered the mess. We're all different, and I think you'll see on the next slide, we all come from our own experiences, don't we? And our own education experiences. What was it like when we were younger? Were we allowed to make a mess? Were we told to keep things controlled into a certain area? The thing is, to a certain extent, we have to overcome that a little bit ourselves and find a way around that. I think when we were talking on one of the sessions before, someone had a brilliant idea about one of these pop-up pods that you can do messy play inside. So yeah, it's mess, and no one really wants their front room covered in paint, but you can, hopefully you might have some outdoor space, do it outside, do it in a space where you feel comfortable, where you're not going to be stressed out about it, because that's not a very creative sort of vibe for children, is it? Or join a group where there's painting and creativity going on. Like some of our networking sessions where we've done paint, if you're somewhere like that's got a big enough space and you can paint, and there are quite a few adults, then you feel a little bit more relaxed about it, don't you? Because it really doesn't matter, and you could all clear up at the end of the session. So if you're not lucky enough to be able to go on one of the networking sessions, maybe that's something you can think about getting together with other childminders, or speak to your local family hub and see if you can hire a room and do some painting there, or something along those lines. It makes life a little bit easier for everyone, doesn't it? So resources. I don't know who put this on here. So what do we mean by resources and space? Do we mean the cost of resources? I'm assuming that's probably what it is. So you'll see quite a lot of the pictures that we've just shown were from my setting. Some were from Katie's. And there's nothing on there that's particularly expensive. The most expensive thing would definitely be the paint itself. You can water down the paint a little bit to make it go a bit further. You don't have to give children a whole bottle of paint. You can, decant it into something else. They can still have the bottle for squeezing, but you're not using up all the bottle at the same time. You can put paint into pump bottles. So yeah, children can access their own paint, which is we want that. That's what it said in that evidence, didn't it? When they can access their own resources, but they're not going to access gallons and gallons of paint in that way. So that's sometimes a good idea. Yeah, go on.
You can water it. What I've done is water it down and put it into spray bottles.
Great idea.
And that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, Lorna, because it's still a creative experience, isn't it? That the picture you saw right at the beginning was of the children with some water and rollers, and there was the tiniest bit of paint in there, but it still was enough for them to experience the idea of colour and changing colour and painting with it. So yeah, Lorna, that's a really good idea. And actually, spray bottles are great for fine motor skill development, as I'm sure you probably know.
In the chat, Kim, somebody's put food colouring and water.
Yes,
and then someone else has added, sometimes I use kitchen foil, and Arthur has mentioned that.
Oh, a kitchen foil to paint on. Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. You can paint on all sorts of things, can't you? But kitchen foil's really lovely, actually. There was a picture on there, I think came from Katie's setting, where it said that children are critical thinkers. They're painting on kitchen foil there. Yeah, thank you. That's a really good idea. So I think we can see quite a lot of these things have the same. We've all come up with the same barriers, haven't we? The one about the weather, I was just going to quickly say, unless someone wanted to chip in on it, is that you can paint outside in the rain. In fact, that's quite a fun thing to do. And Katie sent me, I don't think I had a chance to use it on here, a fantastic picture of children painting snow. So she'd brought snow in on sort of large trays, and the children were painting on the snow. Obviously, that's a really easy thing to do, isn't it? And then you could just put them outside, and it will just melt away when they're finished with it. But I can see a sort of pattern emerging of the paint and the mess and the not wanting to clear up. And I do completely understand that. I have to say, after 23 years of clearing up paint and mess, you know, I still don't particularly want to do it, but I know that it's part of my role to help children to develop that aspect of their development. So,
Kim, sorry, there's a couple more on the chat. Kay has said an interesting one. She said, turn a table upside down and wrap the legs in cling film, and then you can paint on that.
that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. And Natalie says, cornflower, water, and food colouring is a good one for outside on the patio.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, that's the one that I was saying about if you cook that rather than just mix it together, then you get sort of this lovely custardy paint. It's just lovely stuff. Yeah.
Barbara's just mentioned about what are the restrictions around the flour and the cornflower?
Oh, okay. I think we did on one of the other webinars. I did add the oh, actually it's on the Padlet, sorry. I've added the official guidance. We are meant to heat the flour or cook it. And same with corn flour. I've done it, and I think I was talking to someone last week who said they were having problems with it, but I haven't experienced any issues with it. But someone else also said to me on a different group that it's guidance, it's not a legal requirement. So I think you need to probably risk assess this yourself and think if you were working with older children who you knew weren't going to put it in their mouths, don't worry, you might not want to worry about it. If you're going to work with young children who are eating it, or you're making Play-Doh, for instance, and you knew they were going to eat or lick that Play-Doh like they always do, then the guidance is that you cook it. Barbara, I think you've got a link to the Padlet, haven't you? So I'm pretty sure I've put it on there, but if not, hang on, I'm going to make a quick note.
She's just said, how do you cook it? When you say cook it, do you remember, Kim?
I can't remember the temperature. I think it's 200 degrees for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I just put it on a tray. I spread it on a sort of casserole tray thing and popped it in the oven, took it out, let it cool down, and then used it. So, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, the weather thing. Please don't let the weather be a barrier to your painting. Yes, you could do maybe inside smaller, slightly less messy types of painting, like the watercolor type painting, or you can actually paint on your windows, which is a really nice thing to do. And again, the cleaning them off is a really good thing. So actually, if you wanted to paint outside, if you've got patio doors or something in the rain, as Lorna was saying, pop your waterproofs on, get out there, paint them, and then let the rain wash it all off again. I mean, it's just lovely. The parents not wanting messy children, I think we have covered. It's part of our job is educating the parents about why these things are important. And I know we have to take into account that parents might also have their own experiences, or there might be cultural things going on about why they don't want their children to be messy. I totally understand and respect all of that, but our job is to support the children's development. So sometimes we just have to advocate for the children and explain why we're doing these things. I think behind here, I can only read the beginning of it, but I think it says expense. I agree that paint can be expensive, but the things you paint on aren't necessarily expensive. And I think if we just look at it as a consumable resource that we have in our setting, but is very valuable for the children's development, then we just have to accept it as one of those things that we have to provide, really, I think. But how does everyone else feel about that?
I actually did a really nice activity not too long ago where just before recycling day, I'd kept all the recycling and stuck it up outside on like a big, like scraggy sheet of paper So there was egg cartons and plastic tubs and bottle lids and all of that stuff. And the children just painted on that and they thought it was great. And it just went back in the bin afterwards. So that was at no expense to me. It was just something interesting and fun to do.
Yeah, fab. And it's really good to show that you can recycle these things, isn't it, as well? That you can, I think that's a great idea, Kay. Yeah, well done. I always save any interesting looking packaging. I always save that. Or I see a big box down the road waiting to be recycled. I'm always bringing it home. But also, you go out somewhere, you find a log or a stick or an interesting branch, bring it home, paint the branch, or take your paints with you. But I think the actual cost of paints, it's just one of those things that we have that I think it's inevitable. It's like the cost of, I don't know, books or whatever else you might provide for the children. It's one of those expenses, isn't it?
Kim, you can always use, like if you're doing it outside, just use water and rollers and mark. The fact that it creates a mark on a surface is just as much has as much value as painting with colours on paper. You've got a side of the shed and stuff like that.
I totally agree. We had a picture of that at the beginning of the things. Yeah, I totally agree. It doesn't have to be. That was coloured water, but it doesn't even have to be coloured water.
No.
Or bubbly water, or it just put a little bit of washing up liquid in it. That can be enough. And yeah, you're right. And actually, that's a really interesting type of painting because it, especially on a sunny day, it dries, so it changes constantly, doesn't it? And then the children repaint. And the last one I've got on here is keeping paint contained in my house. So I think that's possibly one of the things we've sort of covered already with the small setting, and maybe think, I know that phrase has gone out of fashion a bit, but think outside the box. Can you paint outside in your garden? Can you paint can you take it somewhere else? Can you do it somewhere else? Can you join up with another childminder? Can you go to the woods and do some painting? There are all sorts of things. Going to the beach with some watercolors and painting shells is a really lovely thing, and actually that it just washes off afterwards. Thank you ever so much, everyone.
Tina says she's got Chinese paper and you can use just water on that.
Yeah, you can. And actually there's a really good, I can't think what it's called now. It's a Japanese type of paper where you write on with washable felt tips, and then you spray it with the water bottle and the colours all merge. That's lovely. I agree about the Chinese paper, and I've got a Chinese ink painting that the children have here sometimes, which is like this lovely little decorative box with an ink block and a tiny little china dish, and the children rub the ink block to make the ink in the little dish, and then we use these beautiful Chinese calligraphy brushes that you can't help but do these lovely lines with them. So there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. Just using water down your paints. You can paint with mud if you're up for that. If you've got mud in your setting, just make some muddy water. That's just as good as painting with anything else, and you can hose that down at the end of the day. So in that respect, actually painting with these things in the rain is actually quite a good way to proceed, because it's sort of, they're painting, but you haven't got to clear up the mess afterwards. So let's have a look and see what my guesses were about painting and the barriers to painting. Hopefully, let me go forward. I think this happened last time. We got stuck and I couldn't get out. Hold on, everyone. I'm so sorry. I'm going to skip forward. I'm going to skip forward on my PowerPoint to the place where I need it to be. Seems to get stuck on that one. Oh, it's got stuck again. Oh, it's because the poll is active. I'm so sorry. Right, bear with me. I don't think I'm sharing that, am I?
No.
No, so I'm so sorry, everyone. Hang on a minute. I will get there. I'll get back into it in a second. Right. Right, now I can share. Nearly there.
Yeah, it's
Right.
coming. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
working.
these were my guesses. Mess. Hang on, there we go. Mess, cost of materials, lack of space, and our own experiences, our own history or baggage that we bring with it. And I am fully aware that some of us live in smaller places than others. Some of us don't have as much room as others. I'm just trying to sort of encourage you to think about, I might live in this small space, I might not have a garden, but how can I still offer this to the children, whether that's going to a group, going to another childminders, and that type of thing. There are options for that sort of thing, aren't there? And I hope anyone who was at the session last week in Beer Church, I hope I can just do another quick question on here. So if you don't mind joining the Slido again. Last week, when we had our session at Beer Church, a child made an amazing clay sculpture. So not paint, but just it led to this discussion. When do we decide when a child's creative process has finished? So do we offer them the chance to keep something that's not finished in your setting, and then they can complete it the next day, or it might go on for a week or more until they're fully engaged with it? Or when do we say, no, I'm going to take that away, it's clay, or for instance, or it's paint, I'm going to take it away and it's going in the bin? Or do we give children agency and ownership over their own work? So do we give them the choice? Do they want to take it home? Do they want to leave it at the setting? Do they want to give it to a friend? Do they want to deconstruct it? Because, sometimes that's part of the creative process, is to make something and then deconstruct it, paint something and then cut it up. No, please don't feel guilty about any of this, because there's no right or wrong. It was just such an interesting conversation last week, and I thought it fit in quite well with this. And I was just interested to see what other people are coming up with. So ask the child what they'd like to do. Yeah. Do any of you have like a space in your setting where a child's painting something, but they're going to carry on with it the next day, where you can store things? Yeah, that's a good point. I mainly have little ones, so they just walk away and I know they're finished. Yeah, we know that, don't we? There are some things that are more special to the child, or you can see that it's a more creative process that's going on. One of the things that in my setting is that mirror that the children were painting. They like to paint that and then come back to it the next day and then paint it again. And it just, sorry, I've got a pop-up turned up on my screen. And I don't wash that paint off. I just leave it there. And sometimes in the summer, it dries and then the children peel the paint off. If I'd cleaned that away, then I'd have stopped that creative process part way through. So it depends what they want to do. I've had to unlearn a lot. Yeah, well done. I used to send home straight away. Now try to reset once a week, let the old ones finish what they do. Yes, I think that's a good way to do it. We have a shelf to put things on that we're still working on. I have something similar here. Whatever they choose, it's great. As I say, there's no right or wrong way to this. I just thought it was an interesting question that came up last week, because if we're saying, no, it's finished, I need to clear it up, it's the end of the day, I must clear up that whatever it is, what is that saying to the child about their creative process? Like, you had all day to finish, you didn't finish it, so now I'm going to throw it away. That's sort of what we're saying to them, not in that aggressive tone, obviously. Whereas actually, if we were an artist and we were painting, we'd be really lucky to finish a painting in a day, wouldn't we? And there's a really good phrase about, I can't remember it exactly, but the project from yesterday is the seed of tomorrow's inspiration. So, you might come back to something and change it, or add something to it. And it's the same with painting, isn't it? Let's have a look. They like to take it home, whatever they choose. We have a shelf to put things on we're still working on. I used to send home straight away, but I now try to reset. Yeah, that's lovely. I'm just trying to scroll down. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've gone backwards. Depends on what they want to do. I think they're fantastic answers. Thank you, everyone. I think we're all sort of on a similar sort of vein with this, aren't we? That we're handing over the ownership of that piece of creativity to the children, and we're letting them decide what they want to do with it. And quite often it is take it home, because they're proud of what they've done. They want to take it home. That's lovely. But it's also nice if we have somewhere that they can just put things, and they know they're going to be safe until the next day. We're talking about painting here, but that could be a Lego thing, it could be a piece of clay, it could be a something they're taping up. It's something special to them that they want to come back to the next day, and it's really nice if we can facilitate that, I think, isn't it? Okay, I think that was pretty much the end. I just wanted to say thank you to anyone that shared their photos with me for this. And I've hit down at the bottom, concerns about toxicity levels in paint. Sorry. Yeah, I did check. All children's paint sold in the UK is non-toxic. Here are just the links from where I've got my evidence from today. But if anyone got anything else they want to add to that, and then I've just got a quick question for you all for another time. I'm not sure. Is there anything in the chat that I've missed, Damon? Oh, okay, I've seen that as well. Post about, yeah. Oh, sorry, it's like a T-shirt with, it says today I learned to do this and that and this and that. Yeah. Sorry, Damon, what are you saying?
No, no. Helen just said really interesting. Thank you very much.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
I'm just going to put on the feedback link. Just so, and then that will get you your certificate and slides, because it will give me everyone's email address who's here. So make sure you please fill that in. I'm just putting that on the chat.
I'm going to find the recipe for the cornflower paint, Barbara, and post it. I'll put it on the Padlet, and that's a good one to put it on. I really like that. I've seen this cling film on the upside down table before. That's a really good idea. I think I'm going to give that a go. Thank you so much, everyone, for all your input this evening. But before you go, Lisa, I didn't have a chance to explain this earlier, but Lisa and I are planning to do a session on supporting children with SEND needs, anything really at all, because that's one thing that everyone keeps asking for. But it's such a broad spectrum that Lisa had the idea that we might use a few scenarios and sort of work on those rather than trying to cover everything in one session. So what I'm going to ask is, could you, if you have a particular scenario or question about supporting a child with SEND needs, so that might be supporting the child themselves, it might be talking to the parents and sort of talking about your first concerns with them, or how you reach out to other professionals, anything at all, could you email them to me? If I put my email in the chat, and then, or I guess you could send them to Damon as well, couldn't they, Damon? But might save you having to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably easy if they send it to me. If they reply to the email where they got the link for tonight,
oh, yeah, that's a good
then
idea.
I can collate them all for you, Kim, because
Perfect.
you're way too busy. I can do that.
That's perfect, thank you. And then Lisa and I can go through and pick out a few, because like with this, there'll be some common threads, and we can pick out some of the most common situations and talk about how we would all support children in that way. So yeah, please send us your sort of questions or scenarios, or how you've supported children, any sort of success stories of what you've done, how you worked through this sort of support until you got to the point where you felt the child was getting the support they needed, and they had a positive outcome, because anything like that's really, really helpful. Sorry, Lisa, I think because you joined it right at the start of the thing, I didn't get a chance to mention it to you.
No, that's absolutely fine, Kim.
It's going to take a little while for us to get that.
Yeah, I think that's something that we were looking to do towards the end of sort of moving into March, wasn't it? So ready for
Yeah.
the exit plan and stuff. But yeah, definitely think about, you know, behavioural issues, because also that's not necessarily a SEND need. So it'd be good to chat through those kinds of things, whereby if people are struggling with just behavioural problems as well, because, you know, it's not always ADHD and it's not always autism, and, you know, there are other factors. So really think hard about, you know, your families and what are the families like, what do the families do. If any of you have been on the Highfields Resilience Tracker training that we've put on, then think back to that. Look at the adverse childhood experience that these children have had and stuff like that. It would be, yeah, it'd be really good, I think, to start looking at situations and thinking about how to support children.
That's a really good idea. We can do both, actually, can't we? We can, because that those two things come up time and again when we ask people what do they want to hear about. I mean, it's lovely to talk about paint, but actually, if we can support with them,
and a lot of the time, what happens is that, you know, everyone says, "Oh, we need help with SEND. We need help with SEND," and actually, it doesn't end up being a SEND issue. It ends up being either a provision issue or a issue from home, or there's another underlying issue that isn't actually necessarily a SEND issue. So I think, you know, and then we could be looking at the ordinarily available provision and what it states on Essex County Council and stuff like that, Kim, I think, to how we support children and what that looks like in our settings.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. So if anyone has anything like that they want to share with us, as Damon said, email it to him, and then Lisa and I will sort of go through it and work out the best way to get that across in a session. Has anyone got anything else they want to ask about or talk about with the paint?
Somebody's asked him about how to use powder paint.
Oh, do you know what? I'm sorry to say that I don't have any powder paint. And
mix
that is
water.
Yeah, just mix it with water.
Yeah.
But it's quite expensive to buy, isn't it?
And you need a lot of paint to get the consistency, and you end up, I think you use it far quicker than normal paint.
Yeah, I do like the idea of powder paint, because I like the idea of children being as we were saying,
crushed chalks.
Yeah. Oh, we quite often children want to do that.
I use powder paint quite often, you know, when we were talking about the weather, out on the patio. So I bought some powder paints years ago, and I just put them into spice jar, so it sprinkles out quite small amounts. And the children love to mix the colours in the water, in the puddles.
Oh, Lorna, that sounds amazing. So you say you bought that 8 years ago, so you're just using a little bit at a time?
Yeah. I mean, I bought it. I mean, it came in quite large bags. I don't know how much I paid for it, but it was a good few years ago. But you might even be able to dilute it with flour or corn flour. I don't know, but to make it go further. But I've never had to. You know, you could use it in a flour shaker, but I just use it in. And when it's gone, it's gone. You know, so you don't use a whole lot of it.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm just as guilty as everyone else on here, because it's partly the expense, but also the storage of it, because I'm in a very small setting as well. But I'm actually looking to expand my art provision, so that's something I'm definitely going to look into.
Yeah, powder paint, you know, out in the rain, you know, is brilliant. Because I love the puddles and mixing the colours.
I love that idea, Lorna. That sounds fantastic. We quite often use bath bombs, because you can get bath bombs fairly cheap and they're nice bright colours. And
I've never used bath bombs, but that's a good idea.
With bath bombs, but also they blend together to make these amazing colours in the you know, in the water when you're doing that. And that is a sort of almost like a type of painting and mark making as well, because you're mixing.
You break them. Do you break them up into small pieces?
No, I just give the children the whole thing. This is what I never have any money.
Okay.
But actually, I think you can get a box of about 12 or 15 for £10. So.
Oh, right. Okay, I've never looked at the cost of bath bombs.
I
I
would,
only know that they come in Christmas packages, and
yeah,
I give them away. But
yeah.
yes, I'll probably hang
Don't
on
go
to
to
those
Lush and
then.
buy them, Lorna. You'll be bankrupt. But have a look online. You can get some cheap ones that are quite nicely brightly coloured and they smell nice as well.
Yeah,
But yeah, oh, I love that idea of the powder paint in the rain. That's it. I'm going to buy some powder paint. I'm gonna invest in it. Thank you for that idea, Lorna. That's amazing. I think that's a
thank
really
you.
good
That's
idea.
okay.
Thank you. I'm just going to scroll through and see if I'm missing any messages. Yeah, someone else has just said good idea, Lorna. I think that's a really, really good idea. I know at schools they used to always use powder paint, didn't they? And I used to volunteer in the school a few years ago, and I used to love mixing up the powder paint. It was just too expensive to buy. Um, I think we might have covered everyone's
Just a
question.
thought.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you can make like because I saw on one of your images that you
Hmm.
had maybe I don't know whether it was chalks that you had crushed up in a um pestle and mortar.
That
I don't know.
on this webinar.
Yeah, I thought there was an image that where you'd crushed up chalks, but that might be another option
Yeah, I think Lisa
to
just well, my older children quite like crushing up chalk and actually using.
that might
Sorry, go on.
that might be a cheaper way of making powder paint.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good idea. Um, you can also
I
with
mean,
chalk
maybe
if
you
you're
could dry it in the oven and
yeah, and crumble it
then
up.
it'll be more brittle. I don't know.
Mm. You could.
Yeah, that might be
Yes,
a way of making your
yeah,
own powder paint.
you could use your hammer from your
Yeah.
woodworking kit you've all got and bash it up,
Of course,
wouldn't
yes.
you? That would be fab, wouldn't
Bash
it?
it up and put it in pestle and mortar.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a go, isn't it? I like that idea a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
anything.
like to try and work out a cheaper a way that you can make things yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I get it that these things are expensive and we don't all have a huge amount of money to spend. I guess one thing you could do with something like powder paint is group together, couldn't you? Four of you buy a
Yes.
big supply of powder paint and then you just divide it up between you. That's probably a good way to do it, actually, isn't it? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but yeah,
I
thank
was just going to ask
you.
Damon if there's anything more maths that we is coming through the system.
Sorry to interrupt.
Well, it's funny you should say that.
Sorry, I've got a terrible cold. Is there anything on maths?
Tunes. Yeah, Kim's going to do one on maths, aren't you, Kim?
Yeah, that's next month
Oh,
now. Mm.
oh, brilliant. Oh, I think I
Yeah,
sent you some links.
who, me?
I think I think I sent Kim some information on maths.
Yes, you did, Lorna. Thank you. Yeah, because you've been doing the
That
uh,
is coming up.
yeah. So, yes, thank you. I put out some info, didn't I, about please send me information and stuff. So that's next month. I can't remember the date. But again, it's going to be about how we can sort of simply offer maths in a child minding setting. How we can have a sort of a maths enabling environment is what we're looking at. And I think with maths, it again it's quite a wide thing, but we could maybe split the session a little bit into 0 to 3 and then 3 to 5 because obviously as children get older, your the way you support
Yeah, I
maths
think
is
I think
slightly.
I think the information I sent you
Hmm.
was on the different areas maths.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a mixture of maths, isn't it? Or numeracy. I'm not sure, quite